The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye where the digital spies.
It's Friday, July 20. Make that Thursday, July 26th. Friday, July 27th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say thank you for tuning us in tonight. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit the subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. I want to give a big shout out to all of you who have sent me just incredible messages of support this week. Tonight will be my last show of the week before I come back on Monday and hand over the keys to headquarters to Tessa Nicole Thomas to take us through the weekend. As you all know, I have to head down to the coast once again. This weekend, we are saying goodbye to my nephew, 29 years old. He was a good kid, very good kid. But he's in the hands of God now. But we still got to do another show, and that is tonight, because the life journey of Jordan Maxwell is one of remarkable unbelievability. It's a life that most of us could never dream of. Leaving home as a teenager and shortly after having his life turned upside down, all because of an encounter with an extraterrestrial. For the last 60 years, Jordan has been one of the most controversial, influential, and edgy voices of what is truly happening around this world. He has his believers and he has his detractors. Considering the rapidly moving events of today and the very real part of hidden religious agendas playing into the modern war-torn world, he feels these controversial subjects are not only interesting to explore, but too important to ignore. Then in bottom of the hour of hour number 3, Everett Themer will be back with our latest edition of The Encounter from the Spaced Out Radio newsroom. Mr. Jordan Maxwell, it's been a long time since I've had you on this show, but I want to say a big thank you for you taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight and our audience. It's always a pleasure to talk to a legend such as yourself.
Well, thank you very much, David, and I'm always very delighted for anybody who wishes to hear me to be on any show, because I know so much of what I talk about, most people are either not interested or they don't want to hear. And so, I always appreciate someone who does want me to come on and give me an opportunity to talk about some of the strangest things of my life that people have no idea in the world what's going on the earth we live on.
Absolutely. Jordan, I got to ask you, 60 years, my friend, almost 60 years. Yep. That you had your life turned upside down. When you left home as a teenager and decided that you were going to California to possibly live the dream.
Yep, that's it.
Did you ever expect that this is the way 60 years later your life would turn out?
Oh, God, no. Oh, heavens, no. I had no choice. My whole life has been guided. And so that's all I can say is I had no choice. I did what I did because I was given that to do, and I didn't realize it as a teenager. And but after leaving home and hitting Los Angeles with about $9 in my pocket on a weekend night, hitting Los Angeles, coming from the East Coast, having no family, no friends, no nothing, period. You're just on your own and by yourself and only got $9 to your name. And so I got off in Los Angeles, and I looked around and I thought, my God, where am I? This is enormous. And I didn't realize how big it really was. And so I ended up going out to the Valley, which is one of the suburbs of downtown Los Angeles, and that's where most, regular kind of people live. I don't think anybody really lives in L.A. It's just a metropolis of confusion and traffic and people. But I ended up out in the Valley in a little town. This was back in 1959. Some 59 years ago, and I ended up in North Hollywood, and and I used to go into town. I got a job pretty quick. It only took me a couple of days to find a job, which was very fortunate for me. I think someone was looking out for me to make sure I would be all right. So I found a job, and so. And I found a nice little room to rent a room about a block and a half from my job. So at least that much, I was saved from starvation. And I started having strange experiences as soon as I got there. And have you ever heard me tell you the story about my girlfriend that I met?
I have, but I think it's such an important story leading into tonight. I would love it if you took a couple of minutes to share that with our audience, Jordan.
Well, that's what I was thinking, too, because it gives you an idea of the kind of thing I mean when I say strange things began to happen. Because not long after I started work, I've had a nice place to live, and it was only about 2 blocks from town, because back, 59 years ago, North Hollywood, which is a huge city today, but just a little Mickey Mouse little town in the San Fernando Valley, northern suburb of Los Angeles. And so I used to go downtown on Saturdays and Sundays and have breakfast at one of the little restaurants there and just roam around and try and figure out where I was. And one morning, on a Saturday morning, I went into this little restaurant on the downtown street, only about 2 blocks from me, from where I live. And there was no room in that place at all. I think everybody in town was there for breakfast, so it was standing room only. But there was one chair, one seat at the counter, and so I quietly slipped over and sat at the counter, and next to me was a girl about, I'd say, 17, and I'm 19. And so we got to talking, and after breakfast, we decided we liked each other, so we wanted to take a walk downtown. And we did, and then we roamed around town for 2 or 3 hours and talking, and then we ended up going home. And so I found that she lived only 1 block from me, but she was 3 blocks from town. I only lived 2 blocks from town. So when we would come home every Saturday or Sunday when we would meet, she would walk me home, and then she would go the rest of the way. Well, she knew where I lived, but I'd never followed her home, so I didn't know where she lived exactly. And so one night, I was on a Friday evening, she came over, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and she's knocking on the door, and I said, what are you doing here? And she said, my dad sent me to get you. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, he's got something to tell you, and he wants to talk to you. And I don't know him. I've never met him. And I thought to myself, I don't have anything to say to him. And so she said, yeah, but he's very important, and he needs to talk to you. He's got something to tell you. So I said, oh, okay. So I went with her. We walked for about a block until we come to the house, her place. And her father happened by chance to be coming out, and he saw the 2 of us, and he smiled. And the moment I saw him, I got a spiritual reaction off of him. I felt it all over me. I felt a strange feeling come over me that I'm in the presence of something very strange, and I knew it. I just didn't know what this was all about, but I could feel something very strange about him. And he waved for us to come in, so we did. And she had a younger sister, and so the 2 girls sat on the floor by the fireplace, and there was a long sofa, so the father sat on one end of the sofa, and I sat on the other, and he was questioning me about, how long have you been in California, and do you have a job? Yeah. And do you like it here? Et cetera, et cetera. And so the questions he was asking me, my girlfriend's father for the first time, at least he was talking about things that I could relate to as a teenager. And so, but I still knew there was something really strange about him. And my spirit told me that. And so we talked for maybe a half hour about small talk or small things. And then he said to me, he just said to me without any preparation, nonchalantly, he said, remember back in Florida when when your dad built a new back porch onto your home, your house, and it was the old back porch, and your uncle and your dad tore down the old back porch and built a new one. You remember when that happened? And that scared me because I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend, and I didn't want to act frightened, but I was scared. and I didn't say too much. I just looked at him because I knew there was something strange. Now it's really getting strange. And he said, well, did that happen? Did your dad build a new back porch? And I shook my head, yes, he did. And he said, yeah, I know he did. And he said, and one night you were supposed to be in bed, and you got up late at night, and you went out on that back porch, and the moon was out full, And he said, and you sat on the back porch and picked some of that wood with your fingernail and was smelling it because it was green lumber and it smelled funny at night, the green lumber. And he said, and you looked up in the moon. Remember that when you were staring at the full moon? And I said, yes, I remember. And he said, and what did you do? You said something. You talked to God, didn't you? And I didn't know what to say. And he said, well, you talked to God, didn't you? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, how would I know that? I said, I don't know how you know that. And he said, well, I know that because we were there. We were watching you. And I said, who, what do you mean we were there? And he said, well, we were there and we were watching you. And he said, then what did you say to God? Because we were right there. And I didn't say anything. He said, well, I'll tell you what you said. You said to God that you wanted your life to have a meaning. You wanted to do something with your life that's important. You know, you wanted to contribute or do something important with your life. Is that what you said? And I said, yes, that's what I said. And he said, well, that's why you're here, because you asked God to give you something to do with your life. Well, we're going to give you something to do with your life. And I said, I don't understand what you're talking about. He said, why are you in California? Why did you come here? And I said, I don't know. I just wanted to very badly to come here. I don't know why I'm here. And he said, that's right. I brought you here. We saw to it that you would come here and that you would ultimately come to see me. And I said, wow, I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds strange to me. And then he said, you've always been interested in UFOs and aliens and otherworldly stuff, and the people from the stars and all that kind of thing. You've always been interested in that, haven't you? And I said, yes, I have. And he said, well, would you like to see some UFOs up close tonight? And I said, yes, I would. And he said, well, I can do that much for you. That much I can do. So come with me. And the two girls got up, my girlfriend and her younger sister, and myself and him, the father. And we walked out into the front yard, and it was about midnight. And he looks up into the sky, and he starts talking inaudibly. His mouth is moving as if he's talking to someone, but you don't hear him. And then he turned and looked at me, and he said, they said they'll be here in about a minute or two. Just wait, they'll be here. And I said, who is they? You keep talking about they and we. And he said, it's us. And we've been here for a long time. And we know who you are. We brought you out here. You did ask God to let you do something, so we're going to give you a shot at it and let you do something. And I said, well, what are you talking about? What am I doing? Or what am I supposed to do? He said, well, that's not important at the moment. When the day comes for you to do what we have brought you here to do, you will know who you are and what you have to do. But right now, it's not important. He said, so, and he said, oh, and so I was amazed. In about a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, the UFOs came over. And he said they're coming from the southeast. They're going north. They said they'll stop to see us for a moment. And sure enough, 3 glowing disc-shaped things, round disc-shaped craft, full moon size, the size of the full moon. So it's not little lights in the sky. No, full moon size disc. And and as they came across the mountains, I was amazed that here this man talks to the sky, and these 3 UFOs show up, and he's talking to them. And he said they'd be here in a minute or two, and they were. And they came over the top of us, and we're standing in the yard, all 4 of us. And I'm amazed at the beauty of these beautiful full moon-sized discs, because they were circulating colors. It was like the 6 or 8 part of a cake or a pie, and each slice was a different color. And they were circulating, but not so fast as to blend the colors. And they were absolutely laser colors. They were absolutely gorgeous, unspeakably beautiful colors. circulating under these discs. And they sat there for a few moments over the top of us, circulating, and I'm staring at them, and then I looked at him, and he's smiling, and my girlfriend was smiling, and I could tell the look on my girlfriend's face was she wanted to see how I was reacting to all of this, because I guess she'd seen it many times. And so he said, well, they'll be leaving now, but they'll see you later, so don't worry. Well, you'll see them again. They're leaving now. And sure enough, they started to slowly move off, going northward, and I stared at these beautiful 3 glowing discs as they left. And then he said, well, tonight I'm going to start you on your journey. I'm going to begin your whole new journey tonight. So we went back in, and he gave me a book. He said, I'm going to start you on your journey with this book. Go home, read it, and think about it, and then we'll talk later. Which I did, and the book is still available today. It's still a very important book even today, 60 years later. It's called The Complete Works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T, Complete Works of Charles Fort. And it is nothing more than a thick book based on all of the strangest phenomena and strangest things which have ever happened on the earth, and which there is no explanation, period. No one can explain what these experiences that have happened on the earth, how and why and what it means. It was totally, absolutely a mind trip reading that book. And so after that, I started going over to their house on occasions every week, and I would spend time on the weekend with them, and we would go out north of Los Angeles. The mother was finally there, the mother, the daughters, and myself, and the father would take us out, way out, like 30 to 40, 50 miles north of Los Angeles, to where the big defense contractors are now. It was called... can't remember the name of the place right now. Palmdale was the name of it. Palmdale was the name of the city. But it's a massive open desert area where all the big contractors are today. And we used to go out there. He would tell me about all the extraterrestrial life forms that are here, the different kinds of entities that are here, where they've come from. And he would show me places that he said that they were underground in this area here, underground in this particular area over here. And so I grew up, at 19 years old, I woke up to a world of the occult strangeness of this world. And then I began having incredible experiences, meeting important people, strange people that are very important in this world, and I don't know how or why I happened to be in their company, and I would meet them, and they became good friends, and they trusted me, and I began to learn all kinds of dark things about the world I live in. And there was military people, government people, scientists, philosophers, teachers. And all of these people were involved in dark and strange knowledge. And I began learning from all of these people and began traveling. And so I had been talking since 1959 about secret societies, because I was interested in the idea of secret behind-the-scenes powers behind government, religions, and the banking and all the rest of this world that we live in. And I realized that adults do not know what's going on. Even as a kid, I realized that. That adults will talk the talk, but they don't know what's really happening. And I know it because I would ask questions, and they would look at me like a deer in the headlight because they didn't have any answer. And they didn't want to have to answer something that they didn't know anything about. So I realized that the world is really dying from a lack of knowledge. And so because of who I met, because of the things that were happening to me, I began diving in very deeply down the rabbit hole at 19, 20, and 21 years old. and beginning to study. I'd go to USC, UCLA, the big seminary libraries, and begin to do research on the UFOs and the history of aliens and the different strange things which have happened on the earth. And from there, in my early 20s, my life took a whole new turn, a whole new direction. And the more I was interested in the dark side, the more I learned, the more I began to see things and have experiences that are not of this world. I call them other world experiences. And I've had 36 peak experiences in my life that have really scared me, have really taught me that there's power in this universe that you don't know anything about. I don't either.
Jordan, can you define peak experiences?
Yes. Other world experiences, things which are not natural in this world, but extraordinarily not natural and in your face, seeing things or hearing things and finding things out. Let me give you one example. I was speaking at a UFO conference back in 1990, or 91, 92, something like that. And it was a very big conference, and I was going to be the keynote speaker that morning, Saturday morning. It was in Pasadena, and there was about 500 to 600 people in the audience at this huge hotel. But the people, the two guys that were putting this event on, called me about a week before, and they said, we're going to go over to the hotel where we're going to have the event next week, and we're just going to go over there and check out the place. You want to go with us? I said, sure. So the three of us went over, the two guys putting the event on and myself. And they said, well, since you're going to be the keynote speaker next week, what is it that you need on the stage? You need a chalkboard, you need a slide, you can do a slide presentation, or what? What are you going to need to do whatever it is you're going to do? And I said to him, no, all I want to do is I want you to put a table on the platform in front of the audience, a table and a chair, so that I could sit with all my books and paperwork spread over the table, and that way I can be in front of the audience like a teacher. And he said, all right, then. He said, okay, we'll do that, but he said, I'm going to put a guy behind you, and he's going to be on a bar stool behind you. And he's going to have a camera, the video camera. And he says, so when you pick up a book or a piece of paper or whatever you're doing, hold it so that he can zoom in on it behind you. He'll be sitting over your shoulder. And that way everybody in the audience can see what you're talking about. And I said, that's a great idea. So the following week, I spoke for 2.5 hours extemporaneous before this large audience. And sure enough, this guy was sitting behind me, and so when I'd pull up a document or something, he'd zoom in on it, and everyone could see it. So when that event was over that day, that Saturday, the guy on the stage with me came over to me as people were leaving that evening, and he said, "My wife and I would like to have you come over for dinner tonight. Would you be able to do that?" And I said, of course I wouldn't, thank you. So I went back home with them, and he and I, the guy sitting on the stage with me, videotaping everything, he and I was sitting in the front room, and his wife was in the kitchen fixing dinner, a late dinner for us. And so we were sitting chatting about all kinds of things until his wife came out. After a few minutes, she came out, and she said to him in front of me, she said, "Have you told him yet?" And he said, "No, I wasn't going to tell him till after dinner." And that kind of scared me. I said, "Wait a minute, told me what? What am I doing here? Why, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, we had an ulterior motive for inviting you here. It's something I have to tell you." And I said, "Then talk to me." And he says, "When I was 17, he said, I just hit 50 years old a couple of weeks ago. And he said, but when I was 17, that was 33 years ago, I was 17 years old on the East Coast, and it was in the summer, and after school I was going to thumb a ride north to go see my cousin for a few weeks. And he said, so I'm out there on the highway in one of the New England states, and this old man picks me up in a dirty, filthy, old, dilapidated truck. And he said the truck was as old as the old man was. And he said, but at least it's got wheels, so it's a ride. So he said, so I got in, and he said, this old man began telling me, as we were driving, he began telling me all about my life. There was nothing he didn't know about my whole family. Everything. My father, where he worked, his business, my girlfriend, my sister. There was nothing he didn't know exactly correct. And he just rattled on the stuff as we were driving along. And he said, then when he let me out, he said, all that I have been telling you up till now was to entertain you and get your attention. Now I'm going to tell you something important. He said, after you're 50 years old, you're going to be on the west coast of this country. And one morning you're going to find yourself on a stage before a very large audience of people. And there's going to be a man sitting at a desk with those books and papers on the table, and he's going to be speaking to the audience. And he said, you are going to be sitting on the stage with him with a camera, a particular kind of camera, and it doesn't exist now, but it will then. And he said, and when you find yourself sitting on the stage behind this guy, sitting at talking to an audience, you tell him that I told you that I put him there. I'm the one that decided he would sit at that table at that particular conference and put you behind him with a camera. And he said, so tell him I put him there. And when he told me that, it scared me. And he said, yeah, he said, it was this morning when we were on the stage, I was so concerned about getting everything right, I wasn't thinking about it until you started talking, and I had now a time to sit and just relax. And he said, then it hit me what this guy had told me 33 years ago, that I was going to be sitting on a stage with a camera behind you. And he said that he told me to tell you that he put you there. And obviously he has control over your life. Whatever you do, he does it. He's the one that puts it into your mind to do it. And you will do whatever you've been given to do. So that kind of thing has happened to me at least 38 times in the past. Major, strange experiences like that.
Incredible.
So that's why I just go with the flow anymore. I'm not sure what's going on in this world. I just do what I do and see where it goes.
Jordan, one of the big things that you have been a very, very big promoter of over the years is the cross-referencing between the Bible and extraterrestrials. You believe there is a tie between the two, a tie that many people, especially in the religious community, either don't see or fear to see.
Yeah, well, there is no doubt in my mind, because of what I have actually seen and experienced with my own eyes. I have seen things that most people are not given to see. They're not, I would say, privileged to see. Purposely, I have been able to see things and meet people. I have met some of the most startling and incredible people that are on this earth today that you would never even suspect that I know. From extraordinarily high places around this world, I have met extraordinary powerful people who tell me things in private. And I know I'm not there because I'm so handsome and so damn smart. I'm there because I'm supposed to be there to hear these things, so that I can help my fellow man later. And so I am totally sure that there are other life forms on this earth We call them extraterrestrials or ETs, whatever you want to call them. There's no doubt in my mind they're here because of my experiences, and I've told you one or two. I could tell you 36 more that I've had with the presence, this other world presence around me, seeing entities and seeing things that other people have not seen. And so I know now at 78 years old that this is now who I am, and this is why I am here to do what I'm supposed to do. My family is gone. I have no family whatsoever, period. Anywhere. I own zero, nothing. I own no property. I have no home. I have no checking account, no credit cards, no car, no job, nothing. Zero. I have nothing. And I ask for nothing. Well, that's what you get, is nothing. But I did get one thing I did want. As far back as 19 years old, I wanted knowledge. I wanted to know. And so it became an obsession with me to research everything that didn't make sense. Well, the whole world didn't make sense to me. And so, as of today, now I know what it is I'm supposed to do, and I've had some other equally off the wall and strange experiences that tell me what I'm supposed to do. So, at this moment, I just do what comes to me. I don't try to do anything. I don't try to be important. I don't try to be a star. I'm not interested in being important. I just do what's been given to me to do, and I've been led to do it by the Spirit. And so I know now that's what I'm doing. I'm here to do the work of awakening my fellow man to the fact that our world is not what you think it is. The whole entire life that you live is on the surface. But I've used this example before, and I'll use it again because it makes sense. If you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor, first thing you should do, like printing presses and automobiles, if you're going to store some really heavy stuff on that second floor, you should go downstairs first, get on a ladder with the building inspector, and look at and remove the ceiling tiles downstairs, and look at that floor and find out if that floor is going to hold that kind of weight before you go building on it. And so what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation that you're going to build on. And that's where we get our word, understanding. Because if you don't stand under a subject, meaning go to a library and start reading, spend a year or two, or spend 59 years in university libraries, in seminary libraries, studying all the occult and darkness of the world you live in. Where do courts come from? Why do we have police? Why could the cowboys in the movies carry guns, but we can't have guns? They didn't have any police. Why do you go to court? You play tennis on a court. How? With a racket. And so I began seeing that words were strange connections with words. And how do you put a word together? With a spell. You spell the word. And so it's like a spell or some sort of a otherworld spirit is in our minds. And as we talk, we're being led to say things, and we're either hearing it or we're not hearing it. Like Jesus said, you got eyes, but you don't see. And you've got ears, but you don't hear. And with your heart, you don't get the sense of it. And so I've realized for a long time now what my job is, and that is to just do the best I can to awaken people to the fact that your life and your world that you live in is not what you think it is. There's an old saying that the world's a stage and each must play his part. Well, I got news for you. That's just about right. The world is a stage, and people are living out their lives as part of the monstrosity of human life in this universe. So like I said, I've come into the company of very, very powerful people that there's no possible way I could have known or ever been in their company. But I was there, and I met them all. And most of them I can't even tell you about. It would, I would be putting them into a very bad situation to tell you about them. But I'm talking about very powerful people. And and then, of course, I don't even know if I should talk about it, but when I got married, my wife was working as a private secretary to a very powerful organized crime figure, godfather, so to speak. And she was his secretary. Well, God knows I sure learned a lot about the mob that way. And then after that, I got into the military people, CIA, and presidential advisors, and sitting with very powerful industrialists. And I was always amazed. How did I happen by chance to be able to come in and sit and listen to these men, extraordinarily powerful men, talking about how the world that they live in, how they rule the world, how they do it. And I'm going with somebody who trusted me and brought me in to these meetings. And I just sat there listening to these guys discussing what they were doing and how they were going to do it. And I was just amazed. I kept thinking to myself, I wish the world of mankind could hear what I'm hearing. I wish people could be where I'm at and listen to these people who are talking about other world entities on this earth and how we're working with them and what they're doing and what we're doing with them. And these are top-of-the-line scientists, physicists, astrophysicists, governmental, leaders. So I'm just saying that all I want to do now, because I'm getting old and I know it and I'm feeling it, and I know I'm not going to be here much longer, but I also know, and I'm positive I'm right, that I have something to do. And like I said, I started talking about the things that I was interested in, secret societies, occultism, especially religion. I've always been fascinated as a child by theology, religion, and otherworld entities. God is an otherworld entity. He's not born in Alabama. He's out there, like a child would. You ask a child, where's God? He's out there. Well, if he's out there, I got news for you. He's extraterrestrial. And if there are angels, well, where are the angels? Oh, they're out there too with God. Well, then they're extraterrestrial. And maybe the angels that you call angels is angel. El is God in Hebrew, and angel is a messenger. Angel means a messenger of God. Oh, well, what do they appear like? Well, you don't know what they appear like until they pop into your life. Then you will see what they appear like. And then you're going to find that there are different kinds of angels. There are poltergeists, or the ones we call, the ones the Islamic calls jinns, or we call them demons, or daimons, which is a Greek word, or they are spirits, they are disembodied spirits, or they are actual spirits that have never had a body. That's a whole wonderful subject to get into, about the extraterrestrial life forms that are here, that everybody, especially Christians, want to say they're demons and devils. My God, would you have said the same thing if thousands of years ago, when the scripture you're reading talks about the gods that came here and they represented the Almighty God, and they did this and they did that, and the people saw them, and they did wonderful, wonderful miracles, etc. I mean, there's whole stories in the Bible about extraterrestrials who came here, and they look like us. I mean, as a matter of fact, that's a whole story about how we got here, and it's hidden right in plain sight in the first book of the Bible, but so many people have never heard the story. I mean, every time I talk about the story about how we were created and what the Bible says about our creation and about God, people, Christians, have never heard the story before. They look at me like a deer in the headlights. They've never heard such a thing. And I said, well, there it is. Just read it. And so there's a story in the Bible about the God and who created us, the angels. All of it is there, but it has been mistranslated and purposely misquoted, mistranslated, and given different understandings of the words. But if you go back to the etymology dictionaries and begin to really take a long time, many, many years, to go through the Old Testament and look at the words, what they meant, and then you find out that there is no such a thing as a Hebrew language. So when you hear people say, well, in the ancient Hebrew, well, there was no ancient Hebrew. Period. End of sentence. There was no ancient Hebrew. There was no ancient Israel. Ancient Israel never existed. Period. And all you need to do is go and do something you've never done before. It's really strange, but try it. Go to a seminary library or a big library in your town and read a book. For the first time, sit down and turn off the TV with the basketball and the pinball and the kickball and soccer ball and golf ball and tennis ball and baseball. All the entertainment and sports of Western civilization is around a ball. There's all kinds of golf balls, tennis ball, ping pong ball.
See, being up here in Canada, Jordan, it's all about the puck.
Yeah.
We don't do that ball thing. It's all about the puck. When you say that about, the ancient Hebrew and ancient Israel, that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Yeah.
Considering,
I hope it does. I hope it does. It's about time people wake up.
Well, I understand the whole point of wanting to get people to take note of what is going on rather than sitting with their nose buried in their computers or cell phones.
Yeah.
But you're talking about rewriting history, saying that it's right there, yet nobody is paying attention to it, even the scholars who have studied it for decades.
Absolutely. And when I talk to them separately, individually, which I do, I've traveled around the world and talked to all kinds of important people, from Jesuit theologians. I used to go to the Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies in Los Angeles and sit for hours and days talking with the rabbis and calling them on things which I knew were in the Bible. I know what they mean. I already know what the words mean etymology. And the rabbis would shake their head. Yeah, okay, you're right. That's what it means. Yeah, well, I know it's what it means because it's right there in the Jewish Encyclopedia. Look up the word. It'll tell you what it means. Well, okay, so what? So why don't you tell the people in the congregation what these words mean and what the real story in the Bible really is? And one of the highest-ranking rabbis back in 1960 told me, he said, look, Catholics have got a religion, the Hindus have got a religion. I mean, Muhammad's got a religion. Baptists have got a religion. My God, back off and give me some space. I have to have a religion too. And so I've got a religion. And so I asked him, I said, well, then why is it that we have three major religions? We have Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. The three major religions. But why is it that all three religions have a triune God? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva in India, or Isis, Horus, and Horus, and what is it? Anyway, it's a trinity in Egypt. and then you have the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in Christianity, and in Judaism you have the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's always a triune in which the religion is based on. And then when you go back, it all comes out of Egypt, and then Egypt has 3 pyramids on a plateau, a Giza plateau. I've been through the pyramids. I've been all through them. And it's an extraordinary story of religion, theology, and where these words have come from. I mean, I don't even know where to start. We could go on for 5 hours just talking about all the different pieces to the world religions that you don't know about. Most people think that Judaism, the Jews were the first monotheistic people on the earth. They were the first people to worship one God. And
Right.
that is absolutely not true. It has nothing to do with reality whatsoever.
Jordan, we have about 5 minutes left before we have to go to break. I think one of my issues that I have, and I know a lot of people have had this as well, when we look biblically speaking, although we use it as a guideline, almost like a map book of where we should be going and how mankind should be running through this, we also have to know that we're reading an edited version.
Yes.
You know, most people are into King James 1 or King James 2, which has been highly edited. And, you know, is that part of the controversy as to why the message that you are saying is out there is much different than what people today believe?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you do this kind of research, just stick yourself at a UCLA library and with all the millions and the big, huge, enormous university libraries and County USC and Berkeley and the big seminary libraries in Los Angeles and across the country, and just stay with this subject of the occult use of words and terms and ideas and concepts and where they come from. Stick with it for about 60 years. One day you will wake up and find out the whole world is totally different than you ever thought it was. You never understood anything. So you think you know what the truth is. You have no idea in the world. If you want to stick with the Bible or the holy books, you have no idea in the world what's really written in those books. Go back and do some homework on the first book of Genesis and it'll blow your mind.
So how does this, as we get closer to break here in about 3 minutes, how does this start to tie into the whole idea that there are multiple species from outer space coming down to Earth to hide what we are among us on a daily life?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got about 3 different stories, and each one of them is heavy-duty stories. One's from the Bible, one's from ancient history, and one's from the science point of view. And we can talk about that maybe on the next hour. You know, the Christians do not realize what they are doing when they pray to God. And it's a big story, but I don't even know where to start exactly. But I can give you, in the next hour, maybe we could talk just about Genesis, and I'll give you an idea about what I'm trying to tell you, what's actually in Genesis that you didn't know. You've never seen it, you've never heard it. The rabbis will never tell you. They talk with me in private, but they're not going to tell you in public, and they're not going to go before an audience in a synagogue to tell you. And you need to know why it is that here in America we spell synagogue S-Y-N, as opposed to if you're in Israel, you go to a synagogue as S-I-N, not S-Y-N. Why? Very interesting. So, like I said, there's so much to know. If we just pick one religion to start with, and that'd be Judaism. Well, Judaism is made up of at least 8 different ancient theologies, ancient religions of the world. And today, all eight of those ancient religions have been retold and blended and connected all kinds of ways with words and terms, and until finally we have one religion today called Judaism. But Judaism is actually based on 8 different religions of the ancient world that rabbis know, and teachers and philosophers who have done the study, and teachers in theology and religion, they know, but the people of the world have no idea in the world. So that's why I figure it's my job to break the ice for you. It's about time somebody tells you the truth, where these ideas in the Bible have really come from and what they actually mean. And that's what I intend to do. So we can talk about that next hour.
You take a lot of heat for that. You really do. You really do. Why do you, in about 30 seconds or less, why do you put your neck on the line like that, Jordan?
It was given to me to do. It was given to me to do.
Just
the mere fact that, it's very simple. God gave me a job to do, so I have to do it. And the Apostle Paul said in the Bible to the people of his day, "Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth?" And God says about his own people, "My people are dying for a lack of knowledge." My people are dying. They have no idea in the world what they're doing. And the Apostle Paul said, "Have I become your enemy because I'm trying to tell you the truth?"
Right.
So people think they know what's going on. Well, you better go back and do some homework, because you haven't even scraped the surface.
Jordan, I'm going to get you to hold on here as we're going to go to our first break of the night. Jordan Maxwell is our guest. We got him for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. You can look him up online, jordanmaxwellshow.com. If you want to check out his website, highly suggest you do. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio and Jordan Maxwell right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out. and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable with guest host Tessa Nicole Thomas and friends. They get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, including Deep Talk Radio. And if you're looking for our archives, they are free on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bill, you're late. Oh, there it is. Zyfurazan. Oh, I butchered that. Zyfosaran. Zyfosaran is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Jordan Maxwell is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are combining the Bible with extraterrestrials tonight, and we got Jordan for another 90 minutes on the show. His website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Jordan, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you again for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure on our part.
Well, I want to tie that subject even tighter. The
All right.
connection between the Bible and the creation of us. We by God created us, and the extraterrestrials, and where did they come from? It's all right there within the first few chapters of Genesis, but it's been hidden so well that most people have never seen the story, and it's sitting right there in front of you. But you really have to dig deep to understand. And so I've said too that if you're going to ship a box across America, just a regular box, go out in the garage and you'll find a rope, and you tie the box up with the rope, and mail it. That'll do to secure the box. Just wrap some rope around it and then mail it. But if you're going to take that rope and instead go off to the top of a 10-story building and tie it off on a big pipe, and you're going to hang on that rope off the edge of the 10-story building, well, now you better check the integrity of that rope you're hanging your life on. It may be all right for that little box you were mailing, but is it going to hold your body when you're 10 stories above the ground? You better check the integrity of that rope if you're basing your body and your life on it. Well, that's the same thing you need to do with the things you believe. You better go back in the home and do some homework on things you think you believe, and what you think you understand about church and religion and God and the ETs and the extraterrestrial life, etc., etc. You better do some homework before you die, because when you leave this world, you might be going to a place that you are not going to be able to handle. Intellectually or spiritually, you may find yourself in a place you have never even assumed that you might see on the other side of this life. So I'm just telling you how much you don't know, and I'm trying to wake you up.
Jordan, what evidence in Genesis is there that you have found that shows that ETs are hidden in the Bible in the first chapter?
Well, first of all, let's start with Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:1 in the English Bible says, in the King James Bible, Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But that's not what it says in the old original Hebrew. It's not what it says in the old original Phoenician Canaanite language, the Phoenician language. We call it Hebrew, but it's not Hebrew, it's Phoenician. And this is why today I say there is no Hebrew religion. There are people we call Hebrews that speak a particular language, and since they are Hebrews, we call it Hebrew. No, there is no Hebrew language. There are Hebrew people. And so the same thing is true for us in North America. In the U.S., we speak American. No, you are American, but you speak English. So you're not speaking American, you're speaking English. Well, the same thing if you are a Hebrew, you're not speaking Hebrew, you are a Hebrew. But the language you're speaking is a Phoenician language, an ancient Canaanite dialect of the Phoenician language. And we get our word phonics from Phoenician. We get the word phony from Phoenicians. You need to go back and find out what you're talking about when you say there's a Hebrew language. Well, first of all, in the old ancient language that we call Hebrew, God is spelled E-L. El is God in the ancient Hebrew language we call Hebrew. El, very simple. El, E-L. But you would expect then, if you go back to the Jewish Bible and read Genesis 1:1 in the Jewish Bible and see what it says. When you read it in the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish Bible, it doesn't say in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say that at all. Why? Because the people, the Masonic order, it was a Freemasonic order that King James appointed to translate the Bible for him, and he authorized that translation, which means the king wanted you to read that translation, which means he didn't authorize you to go sticking your nose into libraries and reading and researching. He authorized that Bible, so you don't need to go any further. That's what the king authorized, so you just stick with it. Well, when you go back to the ancient text, it doesn't say in the beginning El created the heavens and the earth. El is God, but it doesn't say that. It says in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth. That's not the same as El. Elohim is a plural to a word. Like in English, we have a car, C-A-R. But if you put an apostrophe S, now it becomes many cars. It's cars in the plural. And so that's what Lohim means in the Hebrew language. It's El is God, Lohim is plural. Correctly understood, Genesis 1:1 should say, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. Not God, the gods. And so we're told, well, yeah, but the Hebrew people were the first monotheistic people. They worship one God. Well, not exactly. It's a misunderstanding on your part. But if you go back and spend many years researching and looking at the etymology of the ideas and the words, you will discover something that all people do when they do this kind of research. I'll just tell you what it is, save you some time. Actually, the Hebrews were not a monotheistic people. They were a heno, H-E-N-O, henotheistic, not monotheistic. Monotheistic, mono means one. Theistic is of God, so they worship one God. No, they did not. They were a henotheistic, which means you picked one out of a group. So it's like you got 15 gods, and they're all identical. They're all of the same power. They're all of the same race. They're all gods, and there's 15 of them. And you picked one. You were asked, which one do you want to serve? And you looked at all 15, and then you pointed to one. You said, that's the one. He is the one I want him to be my God. And so he says, all right, I will make a deal with you. You want me to be your God? I will do that. And so now we say that you are the worshiper of one God. Yeah, but there's 14 others there you didn't tell me about. And so therefore, you're not a worshiper of one God. There's 15. But you picked one. And so you made a deal with that one. This is why in the 10 Commandments, God says in the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, and I'll not have any other gods before me. I am the Lord your God, which is the same as a young man who's going steady with a young girl, and they get engaged to be married. Well, she picked him. She picked him, and so he is saying, yes, there are other young men, my age, or other young men to pick from, but you made a deal with me, and you said that I would be the one that you would marry. I am the one. So there are other young men, but don't let me catch you messing around with those other men. You made a deal with me. And so that's why, we say, well, he's jealous. Well, that's what we said about God. He's a jealous God. Why? Because there are 14 other gods, but you picked me. So I'm the Lord your God. And don't be messing around with those other 14. I'm jealous. So therefore, we now see, no, they were not the worshipers of one God in the universe. No. There's a lot of gods out there. You just don't know what the word God means. God is simply dog spelled backwards. You need to understand where the word God comes from. So if you read Genesis 1:1 correctly, in the beginning, the gods, more than one, created the heavens and the earth. And then, of course, later on, when the gods, more than one, were going to create Adam and Eve, it says, I think it's in Genesis 1:28, the gods said, and they're talking to themselves, and they said, come, let us. Well, who is us? Come, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. And so the rabbi told me, I had a long discussion with him back in 1960. I'll tell you who he was, but he's a very famous rabbi. And I don't want to bring his name up right now, but he told me a long time ago, back in 1960, he said, you're reading the scripture incorrectly like everybody else does. Go back and read it the way it's written. And don't put thoughts into the subject. Read it, what it says. And so he said, let me read it correctly for you, the way you should understand that sentence when it says, the gods said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Well, the Christians will tell you, well, there it is, right there. God is creating man. Well, Rabbi told me, no, there is no scripture in the Hebrew or Old Testament that you call the Old Testament. There is no scripture in that Old Testament that says God created man. It never said that. There is no place that says that at all. So that was your idea as a Christian to throw that in, that God created man. But that's not what the scripture says. God did not create man. So then you say, well, then how am I supposed to understand that when it says the God said, come, let us make man in our image and likeness? He said, here is the way you should understand it. Gods, more than one. The gods said, come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Not make man, but let's make man to look like us and be like us. So let us make man in our image to look like us and be like us. And then later on, a couple of scriptures more, and it says, the gods looked down and said, wow, man has become as one of us, knowing good and evil. Meaning, ask what those words good and evil mean. He's saying, the gods are saying, look at man. Wow, he is really, we messed around with his DNA and put some of our DNA into that creature we call man, and now look at him, writing beautiful music and operas and beautiful music and televisions and lasers and jet planes and all of the strange technology that the human mind has come up with. That's because the gods have made us in their image to look like them. And so in Genesis 18, we read we have a story in Genesis 18 that makes the point. It's talking about Abraham and Sarah. And Abraham, it says, and Sarah were in their tent, and one day 3 men, M-E-N, 3 men come walking up to Abraham's tent. And he went out and laid down on the ground in front of them. As an old man, he laid down on the ground in front of them with his head down, and he said, "What is my Lord saying to his servant?" And the 3 men stopped, and the one man, the Bible says in capital letters, was the Lord, in capital letters. And so that means he was the absolute God. And he said to take off your shoes. The very ground you're laying on is holy because I'm standing here. So take your shoes off and remember you're in the presence of God. And so Abraham asked God and the other two men with him to stay and have something to eat. And they said no, they are on their way to take care of some business. They have heard from heaven that something needs to be done, and they're on the way to take care of some business. And Abraham said, no, at least stay and have something to eat, and then you can go. And the scripture says in Genesis 18, God said, all right, make it quick, and we'll stay for dinner. So Abraham gets his wife, and she fixes dinner for them. And the story goes on to say that the four men, Abraham, the Almighty God, and two accompanying angels, the three men, spelled M-E-N, and after dinner, two of the men got up, and they went on their way. But the main God said he would stay there for a little longer and talk with Abraham, but the other two got up and left. And then it goes into chapter 19 of Genesis, and it says the two men that left, they ended up in Sodom and Gomorrah. And the homosexuals saw these two men and said they were beautiful, handsome men. And so the scripture says that they were the men of the town were knocked out by the handsomeness of these two incredible men, which they obviously were men because they sat under the tree and had dinner just with the Almighty God. And he looked like a human too, and he was having a beer and a hamburger with Abraham. He's eating dinner under a tree with Abraham, and he looks like a man too. But no, it's the Almighty God who has earlier said, come, let us make man in our image, to look like us. So today we look at that story of Abraham and God, and we would say, wow, Abraham was looking at God, and he looked like a human.
Jordan,
no.
Jordan, just one quick question here. Who are the other gods out there that were in competition for mankind then?
Well, to know that, like George Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. So that's a very good question. And but let me finish the thought first. And so therefore we would say, well, these were handsome, good-looking men, it says in Genesis 19. But then we find out, no, they weren't exactly men. They were angels that looked like men. Well, actually, that's not correct either. We men, you and I, look like the gods that created us. We look like them. They don't look like us, which means they, the men, the ordinary men that could sit under a tree and have dinner with you, came from out there. God and the two accompanying angels from out there. Well, what are you talking about out there? I don't know, but wherever it is these entities have come from, they created us or recreated us to look like them. So that today we walk around the world and we see all the men of the world, and we're all human. I don't think so. You better go back and read the Bible, and it says that man was remade. Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So that tells me that whoever this God is, and when we read in the scriptures in Genesis that God walked along in the cool of the evening with Adam, he walked in the cool of the evening with Adam, the very word walk with is a Hebrew word which means stepping on leaves and branches. So that if somebody's walking with you, but if you were blind, but if they're walking on leaves and branches, you can hear. They're right there next to you. They're walking. You can hear them walking. You may not see them, but they're there and they're walking with you. And so that's why the scripture says God walked with Adam in the cool of the evening. So it was an actual creature that looks like a human. No, we look like them. So I'm telling you, the most impressive part of this story is the Bible is saying that God and the angels that accompany him, when they come here, they appear to our eyes as beautiful, handsome men. And they are very handsome men, but they're just men. No, they're not just men. They're gods who created you, and you look like them. And so, therefore, that's a whole different story now about God. Who is God? Well, we know he could sit under a tree and have dinner with you. And he sent two other angels, went on into Sodom and Gomorrah, and they were just beautiful, handsome men until people in town found out, no, they're not exactly men. You know, you look like them because they created you, but you're not. You know, they're not men. Don't mess with them. And so that's the one thing I wanted to make the point is that it looks like from the scripture, Genesis 18 and 19, that God and the spirit angels out there, when they come here, they look like us. Right. No, you look like them. Right. That means that there's life out there in the universe that looks just like us.
So getting back to the question with the other gods that are out there, Jordan, what was the competition all about? And was there a competition? And was it like the NCAA Final Four or March Madness where, you know, we had to play games in order to see who won? What was it like?
Well, as obvious, one thing is obvious. I saw a long time ago that there seems to be out there in space, when you go out at night and look into the stars, out there are other life forms. And they look like us. And then when I found out, no, that's not exactly right. You look like them. Well, then that means out there in the far reaches of space, there could be life forms out there, and they all look like us. But they're not like us. They're a lot smarter than we are. But they can come here. They found us. We can't even find our way of a paper bag, but they found us. And they created us. They came here and found the Neanderthal man and Cro-Magnon man, or whatever these hominid creatures that are half chimp and half, what we call hominid creatures. They look like humans, but they're more just wild animals, and we call them cavemen. You know, but no, when these gods have come here, and they saw the creatures that were here, we will call men. And it says, come, let us make man in our image and look like us. So they took these hominid creatures, these Neanderthal creatures, and procreated with the female, put her into a particular thing they call the Garden of Eden. No, it was some place where they blocked off all other animals and all other hominid creatures, and they experimented on one female and procreated with her, put their DNA in her, just for the hell of it. Let's just see what she gives birth to. So therefore she gives birth to something which is half Neanderthal, half man, and half other world, of the spirits or other gods, whoever they are. And so they are half godly, and then there's half animal. And that's why the Apostle Paul says, on all of us, there is a war in our flesh between the man and the animal and the spirit. Because half what we call spiritual means your connection with out there, them, whoever they are. That now you're talking about your spirit, not your body, because your body looked like a Neanderthal. Well, now you still have a body, but it's a lot cleaner now since they cleaned you up and made you look like them. But your spirit is connecting with something that's out there, so we call it God and the angels. No, I think you better go back and start really understanding the Jewish religion and where it all came from, and the Bible and who wrote that, and you begin to see the whole story is not what you thought it is. It's a whole different story.
So would you say then, Jordan, that God himself or itself is an extraterrestrial, or would you say that it is an omnipotent deity?
Well, I think both. Obviously, if he could come here and see the indigenous creatures, and then give the orders for these extraterrestrials with him to procreate with that female. Let's see what she gives birth to. Well, we know Zachariah Sitchin, and God knows all the other people out there talking about how our DNA was messed with, and we've got half of our DNA is otherworldly. It's not of this world. Some of it is just plain DNA from an animal. That's us. We're a bunch of animals. We act like a bunch of animals. We live like a bunch of animals. But but the other half of us is spiritual. So inside of every man is an animal and then a spiritual creation. And so that's why the Apostle Paul said there's a war in your flesh, because the animalistic instinct is the sex, drugs, rock and roll, street fighting, and acting like a fool. And the spiritual part of the man is to move your spirit and your mind to a higher plateau where you can talk with the gods and do wonderful and beautiful things and help the human race to develop what it should be. And so that's why I believe that the gods have sent certain individuals to the earth at the time, and this has been true for thousands of years. Every time the human race has come to the end of its line, the end of the line, and when the human family has finally come to the end of the line and can go no further, and the end is now in sight, and the end of civilization is in sight, the God, whoever this one was, always sends teachers to come into the world to prepare the human family for those who have eyes that will see, and for those who have ears that will hear, and for those who have a heart to understand the message. I believe the gods will send in individuals as great teachers to prepare the world for what's coming. And so and I see it. There's no doubt in my mind. The human family has run its course. We are now approaching the very end times. The ancient scriptures, not just the Bible, but all the ancient scriptures of the world have talked about. I think that's where we are now. We are now in the time of the end, when all of our institutions are corrupt, all of our political and military is corrupt, our education is corrupt, our banks, our religions, our governmental system. There's not one institution that we've dreamt up as humans that is not thoroughly corrupted. And as I say, and if you think all the government's corrupt and banks and all the underworld and mafiosis and gangsters are running the world as we know it, what about religion? You think that's the only sacrosanct organization in the world? No, religion's been around before prostitution. My God, religion goes back hundreds of thousands of years. The Egyptians, the Hindus, all the great religions of the world that come and gone, and now our civilization is getting ready to leave this age we're in. We're in the end of the age, the last days in the end times. And these end times is the end times of the age in which we're living. Jesus said, I will be with you to the end of the world. No, world is mistranslated. The Bible translators were great with the King's English, but they weren't that hot on ancient Greek and Hebrew. So they made mistranslations. So when you see in like Matthew, Matthew, the last chapter of Matthew says, Jesus said, I will be with you, go and make disciples, and I will be with you to the end of the world. No, it's the end of the aeon. It's a Greek word, not world, age, A-G-E, implying that there's been different ages. And now we're coming to the end of our age. Our age is the Piscean age, the age of the two fish. Remember, Jesus fed the multitude with two fish. And what is the symbol for the age of Pisces if it isn't two fish? And then when the end of the age is coming, the 12 apostles turn to God's Son and say, now that you're going to die, it's in the scripture, now that you're going to die, where are we going to go? The 12 of us. And he said, go into the city and you will see a man with a water pitcher. Go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. Well, every reference work in the world on theology and religion will tell you men never carried water ever. Men would never be seen carrying a water. That was a woman's job, not a man. So men would never carry water. It was always Jesus was talking to the women at the well, not the men. Today, women all over the world carry water still. So how are we to understand when Jesus said, all right, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to die, but where you're going to go, you go into the town and you'll see a man with a pitcher of water. Go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. Well, my God, what is the symbol for the age of Aquarius, the next 2,150-year cycle, and the zodiac? The chosen 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles. It's the 12 signs of the zodiac. And Jesus is God's Son, S-U-N. Right. He's our risen Savior. And of course he's a risen Savior. If the sun don't rise, we're dead. So,
Jordan, I have a question from our audience here. This one coming from Catherine, who is saying, you said you were on a mission. What is your mission, and how can you prove it just wasn't a delusion of scriptures?
How can you prove what?
That your mission wasn't just a delusion of scriptures.
Well, for one thing, I own nothing, and if 38 experiences have taught me anything, it's taught me that I don't have any control over my life. You haven't heard the other 36 experiences. And so my feeling is that I have dedicated myself dedicated myself to the study of the world I live in for 60 years. And so I've always known that sacrifice is the measure of credibility. Sacrifice is the measure of credibility. I've sacrificed my whole life reading and studying and questioning where things come from. And so when I say that it's a mission that I've been given, I believe that. But I'm not prancing around the world on the stage to be a big star. I own nothing. I have nothing. No family, no home, no car, no bank account, no credit cards, zero, nothing, period. And yet for some 59 years, I have been talking and trying to wake people up to tell them the world is not what you think it is. And today, almost all the things that I was talking about back in 1959 to 1963, when Kennedy was assassinated, all the things that I was talking about for many years back in the 60s about the Knights Templars, the Federal Reserve, the religion, and the corruption in government, and eventually in 1967 I started going around the country talking about Illuminati. And today, Illuminati's everywhere, motion pictures and television and books, and everybody's talking about Illuminati. Yeah, but it was myself and Anthony J. Hilda in 1966 and 67 when I started talking all over the country about Illuminati. Today, it's everywhere. And so my feeling is look, I'm not saying I'm doing something godly. All I'm telling you is that for a man who has nothing, got nothing, never asked for anything, and has nothing, but I'm known all over the world. as the man 60 years ago that began talking about Illuminati, secret societies, occultism and religion, Federal Reserve, and how the governments operate, how banks operate, maritime admiralty law, the law of water, and how you were born, and go through all of the ancient scriptures and show you what the Bible has to say about God. So for somebody who, I'm just doing the best I can to do what I do.
Mike has a question for you. In your research, do aliens worship a god?
No, that's a very good question. That is very good. I have heard from other people who are researchers in the field of extraterrestrials. Some of them are far better than I am. But they have said that they have talked to extraterrestrials. I haven't. But they have said they've talked to them, and they ask them, are you what I would call God? And they tell me, the extraterrestrials said, no, don't look at us as God. We're like you. We're just smarter than you are. We found you and made you what you are today. But we're not God. No, thank you. We are a lot smarter than you'll ever be. And we, travel through the universe to found you, and we found your planet, and we found you, and we come here to do a lot for you. But we are not God. There is a higher force in the universe, and all the universe must bow to. So my feeling is, I think that's probably right. I've heard that from many people, but it makes sense. I don't think the extraterrestrials are, what we would call gods, because they don't seem to feel they are. But on the other hand, in the book of Genesis, it begins to look like extraterrestrials came here, and they came here looking like we do today. And when they came here, God knows how many hundreds of thousands of years ago or whatever, and they saw the indigenous creatures, which were hominid creatures. Look up the word hominid. It's in every good dictionary. And they recreated. They put into those creatures their DNA, and the females gave birth to us today. And you trace our ancestry back, you just keep going back and further into the Hindu. And incidentally, all three of the major religions today, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all three come from Hinduism. All three were started by Hindus. All three religions, the major religions today, are Hindu in their beginning. So the Hindus gave birth to Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. But of course, we don't want to talk about that, because that's not, it's not making it look so impressive.
It's not sexy.
But, yeah.
I hear you there. Another question coming from Bob. And Bob is asking, Jordan, is there anything left for you that you have not been told or learned yet? Has your mission been accomplished?
No, I do not believe my mission has been accomplished because of what my girlfriend's father told me, back in 1959. He said, I don't know if I even mentioned this, but one of the things he said to me, he said, when we, not you, but when we are ready for you to do what we have decided to let you do, it will only come at the very end of your life. The last few years of your life, you will be prepared to do what we want you to do. And so he told me back in 1959, I'm going to give you a book, The Complete Works of Charles Fort. Go and read it, and I'm going to begin your journey tonight. I'm going to start you on your life's journey tonight. And from this moment on, we are going to watch you, and we will bring you along, and we will put you where we want you, and eventually at the end of your life, we will see to it that you will be able to talk to the world, and important people around the world will listen to you. Not because you're so handsome and you're so damn smart. No. We will do that. You will speak and do what we want you to do. You will speak the things we want the people to hear. And so what I'm doing is from what I can tell, what I'm doing is I am just unraveling all the darkness that has been on this planet for thousands of years, and all the religions and cults, and secret societies and banks and governments and religions and churches and temples and all this stuff, where it comes from and what it really means. Why? Because I am totally convinced I'm doing this because I'm supposed to do this, because the end is coming very soon for civilization, for Western civilization and the peoples of the East. The world itself, our earth, has finally come to a place where I do believe the gods themselves are going to intervene in mankind's affairs on the earth, and we're going to begin to see the earth that we think we understand and live on. You're going to find out you don't have anything to do with this earth. You were brought here. You were created by someone who looks like you. And now your world is collapsing and it's falling apart quickly. So you better wake up, and you better find out what's being taught at your church that you think is the truth. You better find out what the real truth is. And the real truth is, like the movie said, you can't handle the truth.
Jordan, where do groups like the Knights Templar, the Masons, the Bilderbergs, even going to the Rothschilds, where do they play into this entire spectrum of mankind's future?
Well, look at, if you understand that the world itself was actually created by extraterrestrials a long, long time ago, we know that there has been highly intelligent creatures on this earth. I don't know if they look like us. I mean, there was a time when when there was extraordinarily intelligent, highly advanced civilizations on this earth, and we know they were here at least a minimum of 3 billion, with a B, 3 billion years ago. We know that there were highly intelligent, extraordinarily brilliant civilizations that have been on this earth for at least 3 billion years. And you have no idea in the world of the actual history of this planet that we call our Earth. It's not your Earth, it's a planet in this system. But we know there's been highly intelligent creatures here for at least 3 billion years. Why? It's because we are finding handmade artifacts in the earth, down so far down in these mines that we're digging on the earth in different countries of the world. Some of the mines go down many, many miles down. And when you go down to the deepest mines that we have on the earth today, many, many, many miles down, we're finding handmade artifacts. Iron and metal and steel artifacts, rings and bracelets, jewelry, all kinds of strange artifacts that are in strata in the earth 3 billion years old. And the computer parts, the pure gold, and we don't have very much pure gold, 100% pure gold computer parts that were found in Russia, in the Ukraine, and in the Urals, in the mountains of Russia. They have found computer parts that are so intricate, so small and tiny, and yet they're perfectly beautiful computer parts in the waters, and they found them on the riverside and the sides of the rivers in Russia. And the government that was sending in scientists to look for different materials and stuff, and they found computer parts that are pure gold, and they're obviously designed to go into some kind of a computer. Well, my God, we've got all kinds of strange things like that have been found all around the world, but it doesn't have anything to do with Paris Hilton or basketball, so most Americans don't care. We don't care, because it's got nothing to do with us. As long as we got plenty to eat and beer to drink, we can watch our ball games until the end of time comes. And I'm telling you, it's here. It's come. Now we need to wake up and straighten up and look at your religion and look at your government and look at what you've done with your life and look where the whole human race is. We are in trouble. This whole Earth is in serious trouble. You got 7.5 billion people with an IQ of 40. It's incredible how ignorant and ill-informed even the best nation in the world, which is America, today we can't find our way out of a paper bag. We're ignorant, ill-informed, self-righteous, self-assuming, haughty, blasphemous, know-it-all, and we're dying. The whole country is collapsing. Western civilization is collapsing because it was based on sand and lies and stories. So I'm just telling you, just watch the world. It's going to start to collapse in front of you, in front of your face. You're going to see extraordinarily incredible, frightening things are going to begin happening on the earth, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop it because it was prophesied thousands of years ago. And we're now at that time, and I'm just trying to do what I've been given to do, wake the people before it happens.
Michelle on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio is asking, Jordan, in your research, are any of these gods that you have read up on goddesses?
That's interesting. I know that there's been all kinds of talks about, obviously, if these gods came here and they created us, they knew that they were going to have to procreate with the females, so they obviously knew, what the female plumbing is like and and what they were going to have to do with her to put their genetics into her, and so that implies that these extraterrestrials have females, and maybe in point of fact there are females who are goddesses. And you hear a lot about that today, about the women who are talking about the female goddess and the goddess this and the goddess that. All I know is that the females that I've heard talk about the goddess today have been rip-offs, liars, cheats. I have watched so much incredible stuff that these women who talk about the goddess, and yet you find out they're just as corrupt as the men. They're out to make the money, make a lot of money, and become gods themselves, and they're so holy with their jet planes and their big bank accounts, and they're praising the goddess, and yet you turn around and they'll put a knife in your back. I know because I've got a lot of experience with that. But having said that, there very well might be something to the idea that these extraterrestrials, had. Obviously, if they came and made us to look like them, it says that the God said, "Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Well, they made women, so it tells me that must be female extraterrestrials too, and they look like females, like we have today. And so,
we have about 3 minutes before we got to go to our final break of the night here, Jordan. I want to slip in one more question from our audience here. Do you believe, and this is from Mike, that some accounts of humans meeting gods was actually humans meeting aliens?
Humans meeting what?
Aliens.
Oh, well, of course. Anything that comes from out there is alien to our life forms on this earth. So obviously, I've been talking about for the past 2.5 hours. Of course they were talking to aliens, obviously. Because the gods in Genesis 18, they came and they looked like handsome men. Then you find out, no, they're not men. Don't mess with them. And the Almighty God is sitting there talking to Abraham, and don't mess with him either. Well, where did they come from? They came from out there. Well, what do you mean out there? They're extraterrestrials. So, of course, when men say they have been speaking to gods, they're speaking to aliens. Well, obviously. That's not a big deal. Of course they're talking to aliens. But those aliens look like you. That's why I look at these people we call the president, and we call the king and the queen, and they have a divine right of kings. What do you mean divine right? Well, from where we come from, we're smarter than you, and we are the offspring of the gods, so we have a divine right to rip you off and cause you to be a slave and crawl on your knees to us, and you pay us. And so these extraterrestrials or aliens have run our world, but it's coming to an end now. And we need to wake up and find out what the real truth is. That's all I'm trying to do.
Are you getting tired of the search, tired of the mission?
Yes, after 60 years, I'm physically, 78 years old. I live on sleeping pills. I'm very tired. I'm very weak. But I'm also excited to know that all that I've been talking about for 60 years is now starting to permeate the world. The whole world is talking about the end times, the last days. They make movies about the National Treasure and the Da Vinci Code. All of these. I used to give lectures in Hollywood for years at the motion picture studios. All kinds of lectures about the National Treasure kind of subjects, and the Illuminati and secret societies and Federal Reserve. I mean, I can talk for hours on all of these subjects I used to talk about and preach, in Hollywood back in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, and 80s. I was giving lectures all over in motion picture studios and sound stages around Hollywood talking about all these subjects. Today, it's everywhere now. Now it's everywhere. So I look back on my life and think, well, obviously somebody gave me something to do, because I've been doing it for 60 years, and so many people know I've been doing this for so many years. I was talking to audiences when they had no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
Now today, everybody's talking about it.
You're a leader, my friend. You are a leader. Jordan, I'm going to get you to hold on here as we're going to go to break here for the final time tonight. Jordan Maxwell is our guest. He will be with us until the bottom of the hour. If you're looking for his website, it is jordanmaxwellshow.com. jordanmaxwellshow.com. We'll be back with Jordan Maxwell for another 30 minutes, then Everett Thiemer with The Encounter on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow night on the program, it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. It happens the final Friday of every month. Guest host Tessa Nicole Thomas will be filling in with the crew. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, you can also check out our archives, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Be damned if I can find it, but nonetheless, a password has been set. I can't find it. Oh, hold on. We're almost there. We're almost there. There it is. Zyphosaran. Zyphosaran is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Jordan Maxwell, his website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. If you want to check it out, I highly suggest you do. Jordan, thank you so much for being with us. We have you to the bottom of the hour. I want to ask you, out of all the talk that you have heard and studied about religion, I'm a firm believer that there's a huge difference between religion and any deity called God. I think religion is man-made, and man-made rules that somebody who is obviously, a little bit too tight at the cuff made up. But God, a relationship with God is a completely different kettle of fish. At that. So in your opinion, what is God?
Well, I think that Christianity and Western civilization, the God of the Bible, is not who you think it is. And that's going to be a shock when you find out, when you go back into the history of Christianity and Judaism and Islam and find out for the first time the real story about what we think about God and who God really is today. And it's going to shock a lot of people, but there's no way around it. So you can think whatever you want to about me. I'm just telling you, I'm just a messenger. You don't have to kill the messenger. But there's a book written many thousands of years ago, and it's still today. This was even before the Roman Empire. There was a book written in the ancient Greek world, and I do mean ancient. It was called the Theogony of Hesiod. And theogony is Theogony. Why is because the word Theo, Theo, is God in Greek. In the ancient Greek language, you didn't write it G-O-D, you wrote it Theo. Theo is God. And so there was a book written back long before the Roman Empire that's still available today, and it's called the Theogony of Hesiod, Hesiod. The Agony of Hesiod, meaning the study of God from the viewpoint of Hesiod. Now, Hesiod was, as I said, was about 700 BC, and he was an illiterate herdsman, according to the story. And so he would always be out on the land at night, looking over his animals, and he was a herdsman, but he couldn't read or write according to the book, the Theogony of Hesiod. And he said, Hesiod said, while he was out there one night looking at his, keeping watch over his animals, his flock, he said 3 angels. He called them 3 angels came up to him, and they didn't walk up, they floated up. And he said that they were magnificently beautiful, glowing angels. And he said they floated across the land until they came up to him, and they floated up to him. And he said that they told me that they were called, where they came from, they were called muses, M-U-S-E-S. So Hesiod is an illiterate herdsman out there at night looking over his animals, and 3 angels, he said, floated up to him, and they told him that we're not angels, we are muses, M-U-S-E-S, from which we get our word today, museum. music, amusement, from the word muses, which were 3 angels. And they floated up to Hesiod, and they said to him telepathically, they told Hesiod, we want you to write a book about the gods that rule over the heavens that you see, that you live under. And we want you to tell the world about the gods, who they are and who's in charge of what and what their names are. So we just want to give you an understanding, you humans, an understanding of what's going on in your particular heavens that you live under. So Hesiod, according to the story, Hesiod told them, I cannot read or write. And they said that was all right because they would guide him by automated writing. They would do the writing. They would put in. He just puts his hand to the paper. They will do the writing, and they will begin to download the pecking order of the gods in our heavens. And so they said that the God over our particular solar system is not the God of the whole universe, but the God who's been appointed over our solar system and our area of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. That God is named Zeus, Z-E-U-S, Zeus. And these 3 muses told Hesiod, you need to tell the world that the God that you need to know about, who is over you, his name is Zeus. And they said that Zeus lived on a floating city in the constellation, the starry constellation of Cassiopeia. So Zeus lives on a floating city in the constellation of Cassiopeia. The story goes on. And then the muses went on to tell Hesiod that if Zeus were to drop an anvil from his front porch, it would take 9 days and 9 nights and so many hours and so many minutes till it hit the earth. And so that's very easy to calculate, of course. You drop an anvil, well, we know how fast things, heavy weights will fall. So multiply that by falling for 9 full days and 9 full nights at that speed, and so many hours and minutes, and you can calculate it. And it turns out it would be a little over 3 million miles from the earth. And so, according to Hesiod, the 3 muses said, Zeus is our Father who is in heaven. And it says, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Zeus. And he lives about 3 million miles from the earth in a constellation of the heavens that we call Cassiopeia. Incidentally, in the Middle East, they have a whole canal devoted to the worship of Zeus, spelled backwards, Suez. The Suez Canal is Suez as Zeus spelled backwards. Now, back in 1930, there was an American astronomer named Karl Jansky, K-A-R-L, and it's J-A-N-S-K-Y, Karl Jansky. And Karl Jansky built the first radio telescope and won a Nobel Prize. And later he was called the father of all modern radio telescopes. Now, a little bit later, Karl Jansky, who built the radio telescopes, also built something he called a radio transmitter to beam signals into the heavens, so he could electrically talk to or send, messages into heaven. And so in 1930, just to see what might happen, he knew about Zeus living in the floating city of Cassiopeia, so he transmitted a signal to Cassiopeia. It was said to be 14.3 megacycles that he broadcast a message to Cassiopeia. And if you can believe it, according to the book, he got back an intelligent signal, but it was amplified. And he didn't know what to do with this, because it obviously meant somebody was sending back an intelligent signal, but he couldn't read it. He didn't know what the language was, but it was amplified, which means he was really hearing it clear. And so when Carl Jansky had done this quite a few times, sent messages out to Cassiopeia and got back intelligent, response, but he didn't know how to understand it. Well, when Carl Jansky died, all of his notes, according to the history of Carl Jansky, all of his notes were immediately taken from his office. The people broke into his office and took all of that information by, quote, men wearing black suits. That's what the reference work said, that these men, whoever they were seen breaking into the office, and they were men wearing black suits. Well, now, there's the one, they're the men wearing black. So after he died, now in about the mid-1940s, after Carl Jansky is gone, the men in black suits have come in and ripped off his office like governments do. Now in the mid-1940s, another Scottish astronomer named Duncan Lunan, Lunan, and he had been working with Carl Jansky's radio transmitter himself. And so he too, back in the 40s, he too sent out a signal aimed at Cassiopeia. And he too got back a signal. About 20 seconds later, both intelligent and amplified. But he didn't know what to make of it because he couldn't understand the intelligent signal coming back. So Duncan Lunan narrowed the signal down to a particular light in Cassiopeia, which today is called the Lunan object, Lunan. The Lunan object. Look it up in the encyclopedia, Lunan object. And the Lunan object, the encyclopedias will tell you, is a star or light in Cassiopeia, which we have been getting intelligent signals from since back in 1930s. But we're not telling, the government's not telling you. Why? Because it's a big club and you ain't in it. So you don't need to know nothing about it. You just go on and watch your basketball games while your masters are messing around with the extraterrestrial world that you don't even know exists. So now you go back now to the fact that the word God in Greek is Theo. And the chief Theo, or God, was called Zeus, our Father, God in heaven. He was God over all other gods. Today, if you go to the Vatican, which I've done, if you go to the Vatican, you will see a large statue of St. Peter, which people are, as they come into the Vatican, they will see the chair of St. Peter, and they go by and kiss his feet. They kiss his shoes. Well, they've been kissing his feet for so long that he doesn't have any shoes any longer. It's wore down, the statue, so he doesn't have any shoes left. Kissing his feet by millions of people has worn down the statue. But the Vatican will tell you, and the Catholic encyclopedias and dictionaries will tell you, along with all the other religious history books and theology books, will tell you that statue of St. Peter that the people kiss the feet of when you go into the Vatican is not Peter at all. It's Zeus. It was a statue of Zeus taken from the ancient Greek world, brought to the Vatican, and they called it St. Peter. Why? Because in the ancient Sanskrit language, the word father is pater, Pitar. Pitar is the father in Sanskrit. But in Old Persian, the word father is also Pita. In Sanskrit, it's Pitar, but in the Old Persian, the father is Pita. While in Greek and Latin, the father is pater, Pater. And so we've heard that term Pitar Pater. Well, Pitar and Pater is God in Greek and Latin and Old Persian, Sanskrit, Pitar Pater. Now, the Father as I said, in Greek and Latin is pater, P-A-T-E-R. And so today we think it's Peter, P-E-T-E-R. No, God is pater, P-A-T-E-R, not Peter. And so in the encyclopedias of religion and theology and the ancient, all of these great reference works you can go to, it will tell you that Zeus was referred to as, in the ancient Greek, Zeus was referred to as Zeus Pater, or Zeus God, the god Zeus, Zeus Pater. And so we get the word for God, Zeus Pater, and so therefore when we now look at the word in Latin, God is not Z-E-U-S, but today in Latin it's D-E-U-S, not Z-E-U-S. So we know that today in the Latin and in Spanish, the word for God is D-E-U-S, Dios. No, not Dios. Go back, it's Z-E-U-S, Zeus, not Dios. That's the Latin way of spelling Zeus, is D-E-U-S. So in the ancient Rome, God or Zeus was called Iu Pater, P-A-T-E-R, or Iu Piter, P-I-T-A-R. Iu, if you look it up in the dictionary, was a way to spell Jew in the King's English back in the Middle Ages. You didn't spell Jew, J-E-W, it was spelled I-U. And so Zeus was referred to in the Middle Ages by the Church, the Vatican, etc. He was referred to as Iu Pater. But I's and J's are interchangeable. And so I's and J's are the same. It's just that J has a little tail turned up. But I's and J's are interchangeable. So it's not Iu Pater now, it's J-U Pater. Pater, and so that gives us the word today, J-U Pater becomes Jupiter, the king of the gods, Jupiter. And so the statue of the Apostle Peter, the encyclopedia all over the world tells you the Apostle Peter is Zeus, the Roman god Iu Pater or Jupiter. And so Christians and the Christians around the world, Catholics, are kissing the feet not of Peter but Iu Pater. So today, so what I'm saying is that when you really get into this, you begin to see the Old Testament God that the Hebrews called Yahweh, Jehovah, is actually Zeus, because any dictionary will tell you that Zeus was a god of thunder and lightning, and that was what he was known for. He frightened the peoples of the ancient world with his thunder and his lightning. Well, if you go back to Job, I think it's the 36th chapter, or 26 or 36 in Job, supposedly the oldest book in the Bible is the book of Job. And if you read in Job, it talks about God. And it says that God thunders wonderfully with his voice. Say it again?
No, I'm just listening. I'm just listening.
Yeah, and so God thunders wonderfully with his voice. And he throws down his lightning to show that he is God. Well, that's the old god Zeus, Iu Pater, or J-U Pater, or Jupiter. And so now we begin to see that the whole idea of when we're told that God is love. No, it's not God is love. That's been a mistranslation. So we hear Christians will say today, God is love, L-O-V-E. No, go back and read it correctly. It says God is Jove, J-O-V-E, not L-O-V-E. Jove was the name for Jupiter. He represented the ancient Greek god Zeus, the master god of our whole, of our whole life on this earth. So the bottom line is that when you read in the Old Testament book of Job, that Job is Zeus, and he throws down his lightning and he thunders wonderfully with his voice. Now you begin to see that the God of the ancient Hebrews, or the God of these people we call Hebrews, is actually Zeus, and the Catholic Church has picked it up, and now they're the worshippers of Zeus, and Zeus becomes Zeus Pater or Jupiter, and so there you begin to see that the entire Western civilization has devoted themselves to the worship of Zeus Pater, and there was no Peter, it's Pater. And so today, Christianity, the Vatican Christianity, is promoting the worship of Zeus Pater, Zeus, the God of the universe.
Incredible.
So that's why the more you pray as a Christian, the more you pray, the worse things get on this earth. Christians are praying for peace and for protection and for security and peace. And the more the Jews are praying in their synagogues for peace, and the more the Christians are praying, and the Islamics are praying, the worse things get. And the reason why is because you're not praying to the Almighty Creator. You're praying to a local god named Zeus, and that's what the Vatican was set up to do, to aim the worship of the world to the god Zeus, Zeus Pater. It's an extraordinary story that we've been talking and communicating with Cassiopeia, with our radio telescopes, that we've been recording all this stuff, but the government doesn't tell you anything about this. Why? Because you don't need to know. It's on a need to know, and you ain't in it. It's a big club, like George Carlin says, but you ain't in it. They run your universities, your colleges, your banks, your military-industrial complex. They run your government. The United States government is nothing more than a Catholic Jesuit institution. And Washington, D.C. is run by the Vatican, for the Vatican, by the Jesuits, period. So you can continue to support your government and do all this bullshit you're doing with the government and religion and banking and all the institutions that we have with universities and military, all of that. It's all based on the ancient occult folklore of the ancient world, and it's coming to an end. Our governments are collapsing now. Our institutions are so corrupt, they're collapsing now. So I'm telling you, the world that we live in is coming to a time when you're going to find the whole world is changing. And I think it's because the gods who came here originally are coming back. And we talk about, the Lord said he'll come back. Yeah, well, somebody's coming back, and you better be ready for it, because it's not what you think it is.
Jordan, we only have about 3 minutes with you. I want to quickly ask you this. In all of your research, you've mentioned tonight a lot about the end of times. It's almost prophetic. Do you have a timeline of when that may happen? Because there are so many people who are trying to predict these end of times timeline that it's getting a little ridiculous, because nobody ever seems to see where it's coming. And the first people I check in with are my Australian listeners to see if the end of the world has happened over there yet. So that's how I know how, I'm way up to date on this.
Yep. Well, I am, even Jesus said, no man knows the day or the hour. When's the end coming? Well, only God knows that. No man knows the day or the hour. But, he said, but when you can see the clouds coming and the storm coming, you know that it's going to be raining and it's going to be a storm. Why? Because you can see it coming. And so the idea is that you don't need to know the day and the hour. And the reason why you don't know the day and the hour, that's a whole nother subject. It's because different civilizations have different ideas about the end of the age. So when you're talking about the end coming, it's not the end of the world, it's the end of the age. We're coming to a time in the history of the human race, when we're coming to a time when the human family is coming to an end. We are now entering into a very, very dark period that hasn't started yet. But in about another 150 years, it's going to begin. It's not going to start for at least another 100 years or so. But when it does come, we're not going to be here, and believe me, you don't want to be here, because what's coming for this world is nothing but a fascist, totalitarian police state that you are not going to believe, and humans are not going to be like humans today. There's a whole movement to completely change the whole entire superstructure of humanity on the earth. They're going to get rid of millions of people, and they're going to begin to reproduce children and technologically produce us to become really slaves. I mean, that's all we are now, but boy, wait to see what's coming in the world. And when I hear people saying, well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I say, yeah, it's a train coming, airhead. So there's going to be a terrible time coming on the earth very soon. And I'm just trying to do the best I can to wake people up to explain one thing, if nothing else. The world you understand, you think you know, is not true. The things you have been taught were not true. It's a misunderstanding of words and terms, and you need to wake up and find out your religion is not going to save you. Your God is not saving you. There's no one coming back to save you. It was just a story. And that's what the Bible's called, the greatest story ever told. Not the greatest collection of historical facts, but the greatest story ever told. It's a story.
Yeah.
You need to wake up.
Jordan Maxwell, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Oh, I thank you very much for having me.
All right. Jordan Maxwell, his website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Coming up next, Everett Themer and The Encounter.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains closing in the darkness. We expose what lies beneath.
We are encountering The Encounter tonight on Spaced Out Radio as we bring in Everett Themer, our news director from The Encounter Online, to come in and join us, tell us about the weird, the strange, and the WTF of the day. And it's always a pleasure to have Everett on the line. Everett, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. We're going to take this in a little bit of a different direction tonight, Ev. Little bit of a different direction.
I think we should.
All right. So I don't know how many of you out there read my Facebook post today. All right, but you guys know I've been pretty traumatized recently by the passing of my 29-year-old nephew, Bryce. And that's the reason why I'm taking tomorrow off, is I have to drive back down to the coast tomorrow evening. Tomorrow we're having a family dinner. Then we are, as a family, going down to the funeral home to see my nephew. And there was a little bit of a strange experience there today with my sister, but that's for us and us only. But nonetheless, I've been pretty emotional about it, as you know, and I've taken a couple of days off here, and I will take tomorrow night off, but I'll be back on the air on Monday. But as I was writing today, Everett, I don't know whether you call it a speech or a memorial, because I'm kind of emceeing this thing, I get an email from a Spaced Out Radio fan whom I've never met. This guy, he's never been in one of our chat rooms or anything like that. I'm going to keep his name anonymous. So I wanted to read this to you guys because I think it's really, really important. And before I do, I want to preface here, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a reason why I am very open about the fact that I suffer from depression and anxiety. And the big reason why I talk about it all the time is it's actually a healing coping mechanism for me. And so many times, Everett, I'm sure you know about this, maybe your parents or your grandparents. I mean, there were those topics, Everett, where you just don't talk about that. You just don't talk about it
Did you have that in your family too?
Yeah, I think we had quite a few different topics that you just kind of circumvented or didn't touch. But, slowly that's changing, and that's good. And I think it's times like this and shows like yours where you talk about it that help change it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with talking about it, okay? And I'm sure there's a few listeners out there rolling their eyes, kind of saying, really? We're going down this path again. I promise everybody, in regards to my nephew and everything, this is pretty much the last time I'm going to mention him on the air. All right? Pretty much the last time that we're going to go in depth. And, I know that death has struck everybody in one way or another, and it's all in how you react to it. Part of my therapy has been trying to get on the radio, trying to stay sane. Even tonight during Jordan Maxwell's, I had a message sent into my nephew's memorial group on Facebook, and it was one of his best friends growing up through elementary school and early on in high school, and posted like a bunch of pictures of my nephew. And that choked me up. And thank goodness Jordan is long-winded, because, I had to catch my breath there and refocus everything. But nonetheless, sometimes we don't understand the impact, Everett, of what we do. We really don't. And I got this email today, and I'm going to keep the gentleman's name anonymous. Like I said, He's never appeared, as far as I know, in any of our chat rooms or on Twitter. But I wanted to share this with all of you, because all of you out there listening, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're in one of our chat rooms, or whether you are sitting at home, at work, in your cars, okay, wherever you may be hanging out with us. So this gentleman sends me this, and I'm going to be honest with you. It caught me at a moment earlier today where I was feeling pretty emotional and pretty down.
I bet it did.
Yeah. But the one thing that I've noticed through this week, since I found out about my nephew and now planning his memorial and everything, is at my lowest times, there's always been someone or something that picks me up. And this picked me up. So the email reads like this. Wanted to send you and your family my deepest condolences for the loss of your nephew. The testimonial you spoke before the start of the show, and I'm going to assume this show was the one where a week ago with Mike Moore and the night I found out. I really don't know. But he says, the testimonial you spoke before the start of the show was not only touching and of heartfelt sincerity, but truly hit home to me. I've been struggling with alcoholism for years, and over the past 2-3 months have started to begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Hearing you speak, I felt as if a weight was lifted from me. I haven't had a drink since then. Even though it has only been mere days, that's a big breakthrough for me. When I consider a drink, I flash back to your kind words for your nephew and for all addicts suffering, and it helps me focus on my goal. Thank you, God bless you, and yours. I tell you, I was moved to tears.
That is pretty powerful.
I was moved to tears by this, and I didn't know what to say in an email. So if you're listening tonight, okay, the gentleman who sent me this email, if you're listening tonight, or you're going to listen on our YouTube channel and catch the show via the archives, do me a favor, please. Email me, keep me in touch with how you're doing. I need to know. You reached out to me. I need to know how you're doing. And, the one thing about addiction that I have learned this week, and when I worked in Vancouver, man, when I thought of heroin, when I thought of fentanyl, I thought of these whacked out junkies that are sleeping in tent cities or sleeping on
street corners, or doing the, we always see people posting these videos of people just absolutely cracked right out. And we take it as almost a piece of humor, Everett. And then we put it back, and then we put it back in the closet where we store it.
We absolutely do that, and that image isn't accurate anymore. That is not who the typical addict is, and I think we need to change our point of view, change our perspective on it, and begin to look at the whole problem differently.
Absolutely, we do. Absolutely, we do. And you know what? It's something where we need to be able to talk about this. So if you're listening to this show and you're addicted or battling addiction, talk about it. There are people out there who want to hear your story. They may be complete strangers, but this person who reached out to me, all right, I now want to know. You have intrigued me and inspired me to reach back out to you because I need to know that you're doing good or if you're doing bad.
But, it's not just the person suffering the addictions that sometimes needs to reach out. Sometimes it can be the people around that person. I mean, you and I have talked, and that I have somebody in my life who they're close, but not particularly close, who is battling a heroin addiction. And everybody has just kind of resigned themselves to the fact that, one day one of us is going to get the call, and then everybody else is going to start receiving the calls. And it's as hard of a problem for those people that are on the sidelines watching it as it can be, or as it is for the person suffering.
Mm-hmm. The running joke in my family between me and my sisters has always been, we don't talk about that. In the Scott family, we don't talk about that. If it isn't hockey, politics, or Coke versus Pepsi, we don't talk about that. That's the way we were brought up.
My family is similar to that. I think my generation and my son's generation are probably the first sort of generations that have kind of begun to break that down. There's pretty much nothing we won't talk about at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I think this has been an eye-opener for our family that we need to talk about this. And if you are struggling from any kind of addiction, you have value. Let's not forget that. You have value. You have an important role in this world. And I'm going to be full-on admittance here. I thought a junkie was a junkie was a junkie. And when I found out that my nephew was on heroin and fentanyl, had an addiction to it, when it finally hits home, you learn to realize that these are real people. And I'm sorry for being so prejudgmental.
So many people are quick to judge them that way, but what we forget is it may have only taken one or two bad choices to turn them in that direction. It's not like most of these drugs give you the option of, well, I can do it for a while and I'll be fine and then I can stop anytime. A lot of these different prescription painkillers, heroin, cocaine, a lot of these different drugs, you make one bad decision and your life is changed forever. And I don't think any of us would want to be condemned for one of the bad decisions that we've made at any given time.
Well, I talked to a Vancouver police officer who investigated my nephew's case. And he said the people who are using this fentanyl, it's not like heroin. All right, this heroin stuff, you get that first high. Heroin's your best friend the first couple times. But the more you use it, the more you become reliant on it just to survive every day. Okay? And it takes more and more and more and more in order to get wasted. All right? It takes, yet with this fentanyl, the reason why so many addicts are switching over to it is because the high is the same every single time. And because their brain, not them, their brain is fixated on that euphoric feeling again. They literally, the brain tells the person, let's do that again. That was fun. That was fun. It doesn't matter if you were clean 2.5 months like my nephew was. The brain tells you that.
I don't think you can say or use the phrase get wasted, because I think, the people I've known that have had these addictions or these problems, it's in many ways it's not a situation where they want to escape anymore. It's not fun. It's almost like their brain has been rewired where they need it to function normally. So I think that we have to really look at it and remember that it's not going out and searching for a high for the fun of it or the joy of it, or necessarily even to escape. It's almost a situation where they're searching for what has become their normal, and they need that to function.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But the big thing for tonight, okay, and we're going to skip the thought of the day today because, like I said, the next couple of days are going to be pretty hard on me. And I don't look forward to seeing my nephew's body tomorrow. I really don't look forward to that. But it's a necessary reality. And I just want people to know out there that these topics, heroin, fentanyl, crack, alcohol, steroids, oxycodone, all right, Xanax, all right, we're allowed to talk about these things. We all look to addiction because we are hurting, and we're looking for something to take the pain away, no matter how deep that pain is, whether it's mental, whether it's physical. That's how we become addicted. And we didn't talk about it. As a family, we didn't talk about it. We swept it under the rug until it got so bad that we had to act as a family and try and get my nephew as much help as we possibly could. All right? Now, for most people out there, Everett, they don't know how to help. And that's even scarier because they go on Google, they do about a 10-minute search. These websites for these addiction places are so convoluted with information, or even government websites, whether they're provincial or state websites, trying to find anything is so convoluted. It's ridiculous. And people get scared.
Even when they do find the right information or find the right direction to go, there's a lot of times they can't do anything anyway because it ultimately falls in the hands of the person who's suffering the addiction.
Absolutely. They're the ones who make the decision. They still have the control of their life. They have to. The addict needs to make the choice. All right? Because it's going to be a lifelong fight. Because they always know they can go back. And, one of the ways I put it in my nephew's memorial is, I think all of us out there have an ex that we just didn't like. We knew why we broke up with them. We didn't like it. Maybe they treated us bad. Maybe we just grew apart. And then like 3, 4, 5 months later, you start thinking about it. Well, that wasn't so bad. I miss her, or I miss him. Maybe I should give them a call, see what they're doing. Wonder if we could get back together. But you forget the fact that they crashed your car, they drained your bank account, they maybe were verbally abusive or physically abusive. You forget that because your mind plays tricks on you. And you remember the good times instead of the bad. Well, these drugs like fentanyl and heroin are like that. That's what I've learned.
And you know, it seems like for an addict, it would be very hard to, once the ideas of the good times come back into their memory, it seems like it would be very hard to push those out. And I think one of the ways to do that is to keep it in the forefront of the discussion. Keep talking about these things. Find ways to help these people and remember that it is going to be a struggle for possibly the rest of their lives.
Exactly. But you know, as family, the one thing I am proud about for my family is we didn't give up. We never gave up on my nephew. My father literally spent tens of thousands of dollars over the last year trying to get him clean and into homes or into these recovery homes. Right?
That is, you have to applaud him for that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that affects his retirement. Right? My dad's 69 years old. Him and Mom are both retired. They can't afford it. Right? They can't afford it. And now we got to pay for a funeral. Right? Which, by God's grace, a couple of our more wealthy family members who knew what my dad did said, don't worry about the bill. We got it. You did good, Dave. My dad's name is Dave as well. Basically said, you did good, Dave. You did good. We got this covered for you.
Wow.
But the message here tonight, as we only got about 6 minutes left, don't be afraid to talk about these subjects. Don't be afraid to go up to a stranger, a police officer, you know, a minister, even if you're not religious. It's amazing what going up to a complete stranger would do if you're scared to talk to your family or your best friends or whatever. But there are literally thousands of people who want to help you out. Thousands of people who want to help you out. And take that time to search for help. Because you are valued. Doesn't matter how much or how stoned you are or whatever, or how drunk you are, you have value. You may not see it, but others do. You have value. My nephew thought he had no value. And guess what, Everett? Every counselor that I've talked to in the last 8 days to fill them in on what happened and what happened at their facility, why he was kicked out. All right? Every one told me the same thing. When he left here, he was sober. He just broke the house rules. And they also applauded him for the fact that he was one of the best they'd ever seen in working with younger kids, like 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who are so smacked out on crack, heroin, fentanyl, okay, that he was giving them hope for the future. He made a difference.
And you know, that's something we maybe need to begin doing, is instead of applauding somebody after the fact, we need to start applauding people during their journey to recovery.
Absolutely. But the problem is we've already, for the most part, given up on these people. We've already given up. Why
Sadly,
give up?
Right.
And, if you have a friend whose child is going through this, they may need some counseling from you too. Just let them hear it out. If we want to solve this problem, we can't shove it under the carpet. We got to talk about it. Talking is free. Talking helps. Talking is therapeutic. And if you don't have the balls to get out there and help a family member or help a best friend who is either going through a problem, and maybe you have, and maybe it got ugly, okay? Because let's face it, it can get ugly, okay? But as mad as you can get at that person and say you no longer care anymore, you care. Because you know what? When they're lying dead in a coffin, like my nephew is right now, at the funeral home in Abbotsford, British Columbia. All right? All you can think about is, God, would I trade places with him or her? Don't give up. Never give up, because you want that one more time. My baby boy met him once. And guess what's sitting? Yeah, only once. And guess what's sitting in my nephew or my son's room right now?
Your nephew's hat?
No, I got that right in front of me. My nephew's Tonka trucks. He'll never get to play with them. Well, my son will play with them, but he'll never get to play with his cousin over that. With those. My cousin will never get, or my nephew will never see the joy on his little cousin's face because of that. So keep up the fight. If you're supporting an addict, get some help yourself, because you need it. There's lots of free help out there. And if you can't find anything governmental or in your community, go to a church. Go to a church. They will always
and it doesn't even matter what denomination. Most of them, all of them, will have at least some information to start putting you on the right path.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think along those lines, well, if I go to a church, they're going to try and indoctrinate me into their religion. No. The beautiful part about a church, okay, whether you agree with religion or not, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But you know what? There's a lot of people there who will volunteer to help you because they can tell you don't have a friend right now. And that's if you are not knowing how to deal with an addict, or you're an addict yourself.
And sometimes it almost takes that sort of outsider that you need to reach out to, who has a little bit of distance and perspective, to help you figure out the path and what direction and what steps to take. And they will have more information on where to go. So there's no real reason to even be afraid to reach out to somebody like that.
Absolutely. Reach out. Go to the websites, go to your church, reach out to your family members. And by God, if you have a family member who needs to talk, allow them to talk. Everyone, I want to say thank you for allowing me to vent my frustrations and my sadness and my helplessness and hopelessness with my nephew to you the last week and a half. That has meant the absolute world to me. And I can guarantee you that Monday night you'll hear a brand new Dave on the radio, because I will have it all out of my system. But I want to say a big thank you to all of you. Everett, thank you for letting me kind of barge in on your encounter today.
Hey, thanks for letting me be here with you.
Hey, where can people find the encounter?
People can find the encounter right now on Facebook at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter Online.
Thank you so much. And we want to say thank you to Jordan Maxwell, who came on the first 2.5 hours of the show. Jordan's website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, if you want to check it on out. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Tessa Nicole Thomas coming in, fill-in hosting for me on the SOR Paranormal Roundtable tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. A big, big thank you to everybody in the Spreaker chat room for chatting it on heavy tonight. You guys were fantastic. Thanks to everybody at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I've needed a lot of laughs in the last 8-9 days. You provided it. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And that's on Twitter. And, of course, the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Thank you for sharing the show. Thanks for telling your friends and doing your part for making us bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you in 21 hours from now. No, I won't. I'll talk to you Monday. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. You need to take us home. Good night.